Oh, we love you guys. It's such an honor and a privilege to be connected to so many amazing people all over the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being entangled with us.
So let's just pray. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That way I can settle down, you can settle down, and we can just kind of chill. So Papa, we love you. Thank you. Thank you for that. We live in a time where we can engage so many people all at one time, all in the same vein. And we're just really excited for what we're going to talk about today, what you have coming, what you have working throughout the world. And we love you. Amen. So, so this is actually Jenn's idea, and it's really an idea that's really way long overdue.
Yeah.
Of just kind of updating everyone where we are, because it's kind of like, we've been back in the States for 2.5 months, and we've been going to a lot of churches, we've been going to a lot of meetings, we've been doing a lot of travel, but it's kind of like, wait, we live in an age where we can literally just update everybody at one time through this medium.
So for those of you who have not met Ken, who know me, this is my lovely husband.
Hi.
And most of you guys, I feel like, know both of us. But then there might be some people on here who have not met me. So I'm Jenn. It's really nice to connect. And yeah, we just wanted to share what God's talking about for our family, because it's something that we, some of you have probably heard some of the story, but really just going kind of more public with it now that things have kind of nailed into place, a little bit anyway. It's still, we're holding it all with open hands, just like we do everything, right? I feel like God is taking the whole planet into a place where we're learning how to be okay with being uncomfortable, and just stewarding him in the midst of it all, and just learning to be obedient to whatever the next step is right in front of us. I know so many of you guys are on that same journey with us. So yeah, so this is just one more leg of the journey that we're on, moving our family down to Puerto Rico. So we just kind of wanted to share the blueprint of that. Do you want to talk about like how it started? Or
Sure. Well, let's give everybody some, because I know that there are some people joining from TikTok and joining from other places who might not know the whole story.
Yeah.
So as most folks know, we were in Wales for roughly the last 5 years. It was almost 5 years. But we had been on mission a little bit longer than that, because we were living in a kind of a mission home, kind of like we're doing right now. This is not our home, by the way. This is a home, a temporary house that we're staying while we're in the States, because we'll be leaving the States in the next month. But we were in Wales Lord, well, why don't we just back it up a little bit and kind of start? A lot of folks don't know our story.
Yeah, just not too long.
I'll do the brief one. So my wife and I, we met 17 years ago. We were both raised in Christian homes, but we had pretty much gotten about as far away as you possibly could. I was doing a lot of at the time we met, I was actually a drug addict, pretty bad. I'd whittled down to about 126 pounds. If it's not for her, there's a good chance that I wouldn't be here. So we moved to New Orleans. We weren't walking with the Lord. We were like really just, we were not living good lives. Deeply loved each other. We got married 14 years ago. And after that, shortly thereafter, we found out we were pregnant. She wanted to move back home, or not back home, but back to be closer with family. And it was a perfect pregnancy. Everything was going fantastic. My wife is pretty much a health nut. So very healthy pregnancy. And then the day after the baby shower, something happened.
Yeah, we basically ended up in an emergency C-section, and 5 days later we lost our baby, but we met the Holy Spirit. And when we met the Lord, it was like all the answers, well, not all the answers, but it was like the holy answer to the questions that we had been asking, and because we'd always been seekers. So anyway, we met the Lord, dove head first into everything that felt like the God that we met in that hospital room. And here we are today. So it's been like kind of a crazy last 13 years or so of that. of just chasing boldly and trying to stay comfortable in the uncomfortableness and just being obedient to whatever it is that he says. And it's just kind of brought us through a lot of ups and downs. But anyway, we were involved in a beautiful church plant about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And we're part of that church team. I was part of the worship team. I was the worship leader. And we were feeling really comfortable. It was really, like, okay, maybe it's time to put down roots, even though we always kind of had this feeling like God was going to send us somewhere. And we've been on mission trips and things. And as soon as we put a house up on the fridge and started praying over this one house, we're like, okay, it's time to settle down for real. And the third baby's on the way. And then the Lord started speaking to Ken, gave him like 4 explicit dreams about the UK. And at first we were just like, well, maybe we'll do a mission trip. But then it became a reality. Like, obviously we're meant to go there and be there for a time. And we always knew it would be somewhere around 5 years. And it was amazing. All the things that God did, it was things that you couldn't plan, things that there's no way to know. We just knew we were supposed to go. And he just literally rolled out, the plan step by step by step. And yeah. So about two years into that is when, it was after COVID had hit, maybe a little bit later than that, 2.5 years, maybe. The Lord started doing the same thing. And it felt like we were just starting in Wales. So the Lord started giving Ken dreams about a new place, like the next place. He knew it was the next place, but he didn't know exactly where. And so we just began holding that in our heart while we were doing whatever it was that God had us in that moment, just staying in Wales, being present in Wales, being present with our family, being present with the people that were around us, and the things that he was calling us to do in that time. But then also like, okay, Lord, we want to know, you know what I mean? We want to know your blueprint for whatever's next. And so do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, okay. One thing that you have to, for those that don't know about my wife and I, is that we long ago decided to live our lives radically. And what I mean by that is whatever the Lord said do, whatever we felt strongly the Lord said do, we do it. And that includes if he said, hey, go jump off a bridge, we'd go jump off a bridge. I'm not kidding. He would never say that, but that's the level. And because he's, God's eyes are roaming to and fro, and he's always looking for people that are willing to say yes. And it doesn't matter. He qualifies who he calls. And so we have always just had that relationship. When we became Christian, so to speak, we were the Christian that freaked other Christians out because it was 100% total abandon. And no matter what it looked like, no matter when people were like, you're crazy, like you're moving to Wales. Like we were told so many times, I cannot tell you how many meetings we had, how many times we were told when it was going to Wales that people were saying, no, you can't do it. No, you can't do it. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get there on that timeline. You're not getting this, that, and the other. And the Lord just boom, 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 knocked down every door. People like, oh, you're crazy to do this to your family. You're crazy to do this. But again, boom, 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 boom. And the Lord did radically amazing things when we were in Wales, things that I never could have planned. I'm a planner. That's who I am. I love to plan things out. And the Lord really liked knocking those plans aside and saying, no, you're going to do it my way, or you're not going to do it. And so the things that happened when we were in Wales, never could have happened. We had 2 storefronts. We had one before COVID and then another one after COVID, open to the public, giving away clothing, toiletries for free, house of praise and worship, all different types of things. During COVID, we never could have planned this, but during COVID, we were literally supplying thousands of people, hospitals, nursing homes, mental health wards, with their for all their inpatients. We were supplying like all of their needs because the hospitals were strapped. They couldn't do it. Things that we never, ever would have comprehended that we could have done. I didn't know anything about starting a charity. I didn't know anything about doing 90% of what we did, but the Lord literally led us through that. And it gave us the confidence and the testimony to walk through that, no matter what anybody said. And so when at about 2.5 years into COVID, we had come back. Your sister was about to have a baby. We had come back. It was in March, April of 2021, May 2021.
Oh, no, March. Yeah,
March.
you're
Yeah,
right.
March 2021. We came back.
A pastor and his wife that I
Okay, sorry. We had come back about March 2021. And when we were, she was helping to deliver, my wife's a doula. So she was helping to deliver her sister's baby.
I'll just be present.
Well, just be present. And so I was walking with the kids, and I was like, I just felt strongly in that moment, like the Lord was pressing on me to ask a question. And that question was, what's next? And I felt like the Lord, like right then I dropped into it. And I know this freaks people out when I say stuff like this. I don't care. I dropped into an open vision at that point and actually saw a property in a mountainous region, in a tropical area, that had multiple fields, plots of land, had all different types of little houses on it, had a large house in the center, had just the very detailed dream. This is all while I'm walking with the kids, like 4 kids, trying to get them to a playground. And immediately I pulled out my phone and I start just like journaling in my phone. My notes section on my phone is amazing, by the way. No, it's just, but just like writing everything out that I feel like the Lord's downloading. And at that point, I knew that we were at our half point in Wales. And 2.5 years later, literally almost to the day, is pretty much when we left. And so it was literally like that was the halfway point. And so I didn't want to chase too much of it. I was loath to even tell her anything. Part of which was because I felt that we had just started getting things going in Wales. I was like, we're just coming out of COVID. We're getting like letters from hospitals. We're getting like all this stuff, like of commendation, like grant funds rolling in for this charity that we've started. I was like, what's going on? And the Lord was like clear. He was like, when you created that charity, I told you it was not for you. You were supposed to give it away. And so that's kind of the modus operandi that Jenn and I work with, that everything that we do, everything that is created through us, is not ours. It's designed to be given away. And so we knew at that point that the gathering place, we hadn't even moved into a new location yet. Like we knew that we were going to basically do what we could to give it away to complete Welsh leadership. We didn't go to Wales to do an American thing. I am dead set against that. I'm dead set against that kind of style of doing things, of going somewhere and trying to put an American way of doing things on it. I want to find out what the song of the land is, what's in the land, what's in the people, what's in the heart of the people there, and call that identity out, because that is what Jesus does. That's what Jesus does. He finds out what's in people's hearts. All right. Because he's created us, that we were the song on his mouth. All right. At the Father's mouth, at the beginning of creation, the word, which is Jesus, on the Father's lips, called everything into being. And all of us were created with intent and purpose. And God's purpose and Jesus' purpose is to call that out into its full creation. And so when we go someplace, we're not looking at, hey, we're going to do it our way. We're trying to find what's there and call that to the surface, because that is blessed. That is always blessed. I don't want God to bless what I'm doing. I want to join in with what God is doing because it's already blessed. And I'm starting to preach, so I'm going to shut up. But basically, we knew at that point that we were going to be on the back end of what we were doing in Wales. So what we did is stewarded that as effectively as we could, to hand that away to other people and let them, basically the baby's birth, the baby's starting to like get up and walk, hand it off, and now it's under complete Welsh leadership. I serve as an advisor on the board every day. I'm in constant communication. But they're doing things with the gathering place that I never dreamed possible. And it is already exploding. They're going to be on the BBC like in 2 weeks, dude. I'm jacked. I'm just like, that's it. It's like, yes. And so, but the Lord is like moving us to this idea, because when this vision happened in 2021, I didn't want to start talking about it, and I was very angry because I was like, Lord, we only have to be in Wales another 6 months, and we don't have to be on visa anymore. We can be visa free, and yada yada. And the Lord's like, no, this is what he's so gentle and beautiful, because he's like, you could stay there, and it was hard, man. It was hard. And he was like, you can stay there. He was like, but I have something else for you somewhere else. And we always say yes, no matter what. And so that's what we did. And so we started pulling things back. We came home. As we came home, we knew it was going to be Puerto Rico. At the time, I didn't know it at the time of the vision, but about a year later, that solidified into shape. And what the Lord was calling us to do in Puerto Rico is, man, I ain't gonna lie, I don't know how to do it. I really don't, but I know it's going to get done because I say yes. And she says yes. And so we're really excited because what the Lord has given us is a vision for a 10 to 20 acre operational farm, a community-based farm. Most people don't know the situation in Puerto Rico. They look on the television or they look at the pictures in the magazines and they see, the beautiful beach scenery. But if any of you have ever been to a Caribbean nation, you know that the minute you get about a mile off the beach, changes dramatically. And particularly when you go to the non-English speaking areas. And so the Lord started, because I'd been to Puerto Rico and I was like, oh, Puerto Rico is beautiful, but I didn't know, and so I start digging, and the economic situation in Puerto Rico is devastatingly horrendous. It's what the people of Puerto Rico are being subject to is criminal. The poverty rate is twice that of the poorest U.S. state. So the poverty rate is about, I think, 53% of people of Puerto Rico live under the United States poverty line, and they pay more than people in the United States do for goods and services. Most folks don't know that because of the Jones Act that was inflicted upon Puerto Rico by the U.S. government as a territory of the U.S. government. Basically, Puerto Ricans cannot import anything from any surrounding country. They can only import directly from the United States. So here you have the Dominican Republic, which you can literally take a rowboat and go to. But because Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, any goods and services that come from any surrounding area have to be imported to Miami.
Including their own.
Have to be imported to Miami and then have to be imported down to Puerto Rico. Yeah. So you've got fuel costs on the front end, fuel costs on the back end. Don't forget the import tax. And then you have the highest sales tax in the nation. So the people of Puerto Rico are really being forced into poverty.
Yeah.
And they have no access to goods and service. 85 to 90% estimates of all agriculture in Puerto Rico is commercial, which means that everything that is raised in Puerto Rico is exported out of Puerto Rico. Most Puerto Rican citizens do not have access to it. Also, you have an island that's 30 miles by 100 miles, but the primary meat that is consumed on the island is pork and beef, surrounded by fish, but pork and beef because of the commercial fishing industry, because of all these other things that are going on. So what is happening to the Puerto Rican? There's a giant brain drain that's going on, because what's happening is the younger folks are like, dude, there's no opportunity. There's we're getting raked over the coals here. So they go to the United States or they join the American military, which is great. I'm former U.S. infantry. Okay. I not against that. But what I'm saying is that the people that are native to Puerto Rico really are being put over a barrel. And so when all this stuff began coming into shape, I was realizing what the Lord was doing. Basically, he wanted us to create something that, because just at the gathering place never charges for any services that it does in Wales. And it's the same thing. So basically, the Lord's like, you are going to operate a farm, and everything that is produced is going to go to the people 100% free. And not only that, you are going to bring in different farming methods from around the world that are not commercial style, long rows of lines of, tractors and stuff, but you are going to do things differently. And I'm like, God, I don't know how to do any of that. I have no clue. And the Lord's like, you didn't know how to create charities, did you? And I was like, man, touche. I didn't know how to do that. And he was like, you didn't know how to write grants, did you? And I was like, no, didn't know how to do that. And he's like, these are the things that I'm charging you with. And so with that, it was like, and additionally, some of you guys know about my adventures in missions in Cuba and things like that, working with Santerians, which basically is, voodoo. It's not voodoo. It's a, I'm not getting into specifics. I'm going to start talking too much. But
It's the occult.
it's sure. And some of you guys know my past, and I love speaking with people like that. Like that is where my heart, like just that compassion wells up, because I know how much the Lord loves people that are trapped in that and wants to see them restored to their truest identity. And when I was in Cuba, basically the same thing. It was just wild, like the connections made with people like that, and just introducing people to the real Jesus, not white colonial empirical Jesus, but the Jesus that knows our hearts and our souls and our minds. So basically that's kind of what, and where we're moving in Puerto Rico is covered in that. The mountains of Puerto Rico, Southwest Puerto Rico, around an area called Ponce. Ponce is called the witchcraft capital of the Caribbean. So basically what we will be doing is creating this farm, bringing in all these different methodologies. Everything raised will go back to those who need it the most. It'll have a community center, community kitchen, worship, teaching. We see houses on the property. We see like where folks can come and stay for extended periods of time. Missionary respite, missionary training, basically to put into actual practice what the Lord says do, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And basically teaching people how to move into that environment and actually get into the soil with their hands, actually work with other people, actually minister effectively, not trying to expand empires, but to expand the awareness of the glory of the Lord that covers the earth as waters cover the sea. And so this is the mission that he's tasking us with. And what's been amazing is like I said, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And it's crazy. Like when I was revealing all this to her and she's talking to me and all this stuff, this is back in 2022. I was like, I'm freaking out a little bit because I feel the weight of this and I don't know how to do it. I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't know where this is going to come from. I have no idea. And I was like, Lord, you're talking about a big house where people can come. And I was like, really? I was like, I don't know anything about anything like that. And so I'm talking to her about it. And so we both pray, like, we're both like, all right, Lord, give us a sign, Jesus, that sort of thing. Not really like that, but you know what I mean. And so the next morning I wake up and I turn on, I always wish everybody happy birthday first thing in the morning on Facebook, right? So like I turn on Facebook and there's this guy that I follow, but I haven't really kept up with for years, who had relocated to Puerto Rico. And because he has a charity that basically works with disaster relief. And during Hurricane Maria, he had relocated his charity to Puerto Rico because he's Puerto Rican. And it's him. And he's like, somebody gave us a house. And he has this farm and it's got solar and it's got its own water sources. It's got all this sorts of stuff. And somebody had just given him a big house on the property. And I'm just like, okay, I'm sold, Jesus. You got me. All right. So I showed Jenn, and Jenn's like, yeah, we're doing this thing. And so because I'm looking at all right, it can be done. So we scheduled a trip to go visit him. So we went down and we visited him, and he's showing us his blueprints. He's showing us he's got everything up on this board, and what they are doing, they are feeding 200 people a week. They are multiple times a week. They are doing incredibly amazing things. And I'm like, bro,
support for the community.
Helping the community, bringing in missionaries, doing basically the same literal blueprint. And
they're on solar power.
Gosh.
It's very much the same blueprint that the Lord showed Ken. It was 3 parts that matched.
And I'm looking at him, I'm like, bro, I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. And he looks over at me and he goes, neither do I. And he's like, I don't know anything about farming. He was like, I don't know anything about this. He goes, but I do know how to bring people together. And I was like, okay, now I can get on that board. I can get on board with that. And so that is kind of where things started rolling from. And the Lord has just continued to pour in on that and to illuminate that. And it's amazing, just the synchronicities. Like the last conference we were at in Wales, the person that was leading, like the main speaker at the conference, she beelines over to Jenn. Like, we don't know. We have a couple of people that are on board with us that are like, hey, when you get to Puerto Rico, I'm with you, I'm coming. Right. We've got a couple of those folks, right? Which is amazing. And if you're on this call, I don't want to say your name, but if you're on this, I love you. We love you. Thank you. You're incredible. So it's like, wow, we have support, like, help, hands to get in the dirt and stuff. But like for some of this massive stuff, it was like, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And as we're at the conference, the speaker of the conference, like the day before it ends, comes up to Jenn and just beelines towards her. And what was the exact words?
She just said, tell me about Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But the thing is, before this, the Lord speaks to Ken very literally, and he's talking to me about all the kingdom dynamics of what he wants to do. So obviously we've got the agriculture and a spiritual home placed together around the presence of God, to have retreats, to worship. All these things help teach people about the land, how to steward the land, how to partner with kingdom stewardship of the land. But then the Lord's been speaking to me about all this stuff in my quiet time, about literally seeing the economy shift from underground, about seeing the educational systems shift, about how he's been preparing me by teaching me how to homeschool my own children without a curriculum at first, and then without community around me to do it together. It was very much like just me and Holy Spirit for a couple years. And teaching me about the education system, giving me a heart for kids who are struggling with that type of stuff, traveling and tourism, and bringing a shift to the economy through that in the Puerto Rico, in this area where the Lord's highlighted to us for Puerto Rico. Same thing, even in the arts with music. He's, over the last year, he's had me release 2 albums, and there's so much more to come. Like I said, we hold everything like this, but the flow is not stopping. And he's been speaking to me about festivals, literally gathering around worship in nature, partnered with him, seeing freedom, seeing restoration of the generations. And I'm sitting here just holding all these things, right? And I'm like, okay, Lord, this is a lot of stuff you're speaking to me about, and it's just going to look like a farm to the naked eye. But
seems like everybody that's a pastor, their wife is a singer of religious music and has, CDs for sale.
I guess it's national.
But yeah, so we were at this conference, and this woman who is very well known says, tell me about Puerto Rico. And so I just shared for 2 minutes, and she said, I need to give you this name, and gave us the name of someone who has been holding on to kingdom blueprints for agriculture, for organic stewardship of beautiful, massive, in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking about the grapes, across the Jordan, they were carrying. And it's literally guys who've gone down in the Guinness Book of World Records for crops. And there's a blueprint, an organic, healthy way to steward the land. And, we want to partner with the Lord. We want to partner with his ways. We know the worldly systems are crumbling. The whole earth can feel it. The earth is groaning, and it has been, but there are kingdom blueprints that are being poured out, and we know nothing with our minds, but we're here to steward whatever it is with our heart. And I know there's so many of you who are doing the same thing and who are boots on the ground people. So yeah, just thank you for the part that you play as well, and just for being entangled with us. But
that was kind of the big, so when the Lord was like, hey, you're going to start doing a farm, and I was like, I don't know nothing about farming. I used to go shuck corn and peas and pick strawberries when I was a kid, but I was like, I don't know anything. And so I go to some friends who have some community farms and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, read this book, read this book, read this book. So I buy these books. You guys know I'm a reader, right? I read everything. And I start reading these books, and I I like to think I have pretty good reading comprehension, right? But I'm reading these books and I can't remember anything. Like it's like reading, and like as soon as I'm done, like literally my brain is washed. And finally I'm like, what's going on? And the Lord's like, no, you're not going to do things like that. And so this person hooks us up with this other person, and he's like working like with university professors. He's like working with all different types of like cutting edge stuff that is literally so basic, it's mind-numbingly simple, like how simple it is. But it's stuff that in our modern minds that we just don't think about because we've done it this way for so long, and like, you know, with long rows of this, that, and the other. But that's not it at all. And it's and so it's real. I'm really excited to see, and the Lord has given us kind of a little bit of a blueprint. If you want to check that out, I can actually let's see, put it in here. So if you go to awaketodream.com/Puerto-Rico, make sure you put the dash in there. If you go there, it'll give you the blueprint for what I feel the Lord has revealed for us. And again, that is an extremely loose blueprint. So when you read it, you're like, wow, that sounds kind of exact. But there's a lot of paradigms in there that can be shifted around. But the Lord has given a 1 year divided into 2 6-month segments. He's given a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, a 5-year, and a 10-year plan. Now, obviously, all of that's up to move around. But basically, on the website, you can go there. It'll tell you everything that it is that we're planning on doing. It can tell you what our needs are, what our immediate needs are, what we're planning down the road, all that sort of stuff. There's a little email connection in there that you can fill out and say, hey, I want to know what's going on with this. Because this is not something that, you know, I'm gonna put on blast to mailing lists and stuff. But if you want to kind of partner up with that, like, and you want to be updated on things, there's giving links and all that sort of stuff. You know, that's all on there. What you can kind of see what it is that the Lord has us doing and moving into. And the location, we will actually be in Southwest Puerto Rico, in the mountains. You know, it's kind of crazy because we've always lived near the beach. Even in Wales, we lived like a 12-minute walk from the beach. It was freezing cold in that water, but we lived a 12-minute walk from the beach. And now we're moving to Puerto Rico, and we're going to be almost an hour away from the beach. And it's kind of like, really, Lord, really, this is what you but that's what he has for us. And the area that he's actually calling us to has barely any cell phone service. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to have to, you know, find, you know, ways to get around that. And there are ways. Starlink has a hub down in Puerto Rico and stuff. So we'll still be doing stuff like this. But it's going to be a very different style of life that we're used to. I'm an Amazon addict. You know, I see something on Amazon, man, I'm ordering that sucker and it's there in 2 days. You know, in Wales, it was same day, you know, but here, you know, it takes a couple of days. Where we are, we're in the middle of nowhere here, but in Puerto Rico, it's like even crazier. So it's going to be a totally different style of life for us. Totally different dynamics. We're really excited. We are planning on, so we bought a new car when we got to America just because we have to drive so much. We've been here for 2 months and we've already put almost 5,000 miles on the car. That's including a 10-day trip that we were in South Africa. So we have to ship our car down to Puerto Rico. We knew we would have to do that. You know, there are some incredible expenses associated with that, new registration of the vehicle when we get, I mean, just blah, blah, blah. But this is the second time in 6 years that we have given away everything we own. I thought it was crazy the first time we did it. You know, like we tried to sell it. We tried to sell most of our stuff. And then that hurricane happened. And good old Steven, if you're still on here, like he can tell you, like we just got to the point where it was just like, you know what? I cannot justify selling this stuff after people lost their entire lives. So we just kicked open the door and just said, come get it. And, and Stephen was driving somebody over there. Dear friend, Stephen Johnson is online. I got to give mad props to Stephen. He has always been such a help. And when we were living in Wilmington, when the big hurricane came through, and Stephen helped so much with that. And then when we moved to Wales, and Stephen moved to Wales, he didn't move there for us though. He met the love of his life, Anka Johnson. And when we left Wales, like Stephen was there again, helping us get rid of all our stuff again. It's just kind of like, wow, that's awesome, man. It's kind of, so I'm just wondering when Stephen's going to join us in Puerto Rico, because it's an inevitability that's going to happen. Come on, bro. You know it, but all this to say is, like, the Lord, people say, it seems like you have such a crazy life and you have so many crazy experiences. And the reason that is because we say yes, no matter what it looks like. And so we've said yes to this.
It wasn't always so crazy though.
No, it wasn't.
Saying yes to some things that seem little, or things that just seem not fun. So it's not like your life needs to look crazy.
No,
so whatever he's saying to you, just say yes.
Just say yeah.
Yeah.
Just when you get woken up in the middle of the night with that dream, and you're just like, oh, okay, that's from God. All right, let's do this. And you just do it. And so one thing that's different about this trip compared to the last trip, when we went to Wales, we were getting ready to buy a house. And so like I had been to India a couple of times, Cuba, done some other little mission work. She was, had a comfortable position as a worship leader. And I had a great job, and it was like, well, I guess this is what the Lord has for us. Like, because we were trying to move somewhere on mission. Like, we had so many connects in India, and we have a love for India. We were like, okay, this is where we're going to go. But everything just kept falling through, like nothing was gaining traction. And so when the Lord started giving dreams of the UK, which I didn't even understand why the UK needed missionaries. I do now, but I didn't then. I was like, all right, this all seems kind of weird. But when the Lord began to make everything apparent and saying yes, like I said, we ran into barrier after barrier after barrier, that at any point in time we could have turned around and no one would have faulted us.
Yeah.
Like it was. It was going to cost $18,000 for visas for our family. We found out Jenn was pregnant. Like, she was like just a couple of weeks pregnant. Like, we had just moved out of the house, like after the hurricane, and we're living in this little teeny tiny house right down the road that they had given us as temporary housing. And it was rough. And like every time we turned around, there was a setback, and people were saying, no, you can't do it. But God kept saying, yes, this is it. And we did it. Like, people stepped up, and and next thing I remember like freaking out. I was like, I didn't have $18,000 for visa. And then one day our pastor, mentor, friend gives me a call, and he's like, hey bro, you got the money. And I was like, excuse me. And he was like, you got the money. He's like, somebody has taken care of this for you. And I was just like, when you have someone do that they hear the Lord coming, speaking through you to the point where they're like, I have the resources. That's the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be that person one day. I want to be that person now. I want to be, and that's why we live this life that we do, is because part of the reason of what we did in Wales and what we will be doing in Puerto Rico is to resource other people. That is our heart. That is our passion.
The kingdom. Yeah.
Because we've been those people where we've wanted to do something and we didn't have the money for it, or we didn't have the access. We didn't have those things. And it's frustrating. It's like, man, I really feel like the Lord is telling me to do this. So that's the heart of the gathering place in Wales, really, is when people come up and they say, hey, I really feel like the Lord is telling me to do this, but other people are telling me no. And if I feel the Lord on it. I'm like, we're doing it. We're going to make it happen. I'm going to give you the space. Here's a computer. Like, I don't care. Like, I want to see people step into who they are. She wants to see people step into who, that was her thing when she was as a as a worship leader. She took these musicians, that some of which had never ever even musicians who had never picked up an instrument. I'll just put it that way. Like people who didn't know it was in them to be that kind of person, and she could see that kernel of glory, that gold that was in them, and just like pull that thing out, and through the Holy Spirit just like begin to work it and grow it into this thing. And she has had this amazing worship team that they would just get up there, they just flow in the Spirit, man. Like let's just throw out the notes, let's just go. And that is I can say that is who we are as people. Is that I might not be able to give somebody $18,000 for their visas, but I will give them whatever I have, no matter what. And so that is what, in essence, we'll be doing in Puerto Rico. So it looks like a farm. It looks like a farm. It looks like a retreat. It looks like a place where people go. But really, it's going to be a place where people can go and they can be called. They could be called into who they're supposed to be in a place that is just subject to such abject poverty and helplessness. I remember when we met my friend Carlos and we were sitting there, and we were like, what is it? What is it that people are lacking? And he looked over and he had tears in his eyes. He said, you know what it is? Hope. To go to a place where people have no hope.
Yeah.
There's no place I want to be. Other place I want to be is then other than a place where people don't have hope. So I can show them what hope really is. That's the whole point of like what I do on social media. It's the whole point of what she does with her breath work. It's the whole point of who we are as human beings is to show people that there is hope. And hope is a person. Hope is a person that thought of us before creation, and the world has done all it can to take that, to stomp that hope out of us, or to just make us sit in front of a TV and compare ourselves, or to stare at our phones and compare ourselves to everybody else and say, oh, I'm just not good enough. But there is a God that says you are good enough, that you are who I created you to be. That's what he says. And we just have to step into that reality. And so that's what we'll be doing. And it's not just in Puerto Rico, man. I mean, this is stuff that goes beyond that, so far beyond that. I'm talking too much. I'm gonna shut up now.
It's good. It is different with Puerto Rico for us, as in the way that it felt like when we went to Wales, it was going to be a 5-year time limit. With Puerto Rico, this feels very long term. It feels like becoming, part of that land and people. And really, we don't know what it looks like to fully play it out in our mind. We have no idea what it's going to look like. But yeah, it's always going to be to bring hope, and always going to be a resource for the kingdom of God, whatever that looks like, whatever he's highlighting. So yeah, I feel like that's it in a nutshell. But obviously, if you're curious about what this is going to look like, we want you to stay tuned, because it is going to be morphing. We're basically going to have our feet on the ground within a couple weeks, which is exciting. It's been kind of similar to when we moved to Wales, kind of a waiting game with, different paperwork and different deadlines and different things like that we're just waiting. And we just found out that we'll be able to ship our stuff the second week of November. So we're getting ready to book tickets and get the family packed up and ready to go. And then once we get there, we have to wait about 6 months before we can begin establishing anything. You've got to be a resident for about 6 months, right on the dot.
Well, it's okay. So this, I'll give you the general gist of the plan. There's like 3 screens here. I don't even know which one to look at. I'm going to look at this one right here. So basically the difference between here and Wales when we went to Wells, we had a very large kind of chunk of change that people had given. We don't have that this time. Right now, we're on razor thin budget, and that's okay. It's not a panic thing. I'm not telling you this. He's going to do. That's not what this is about. But when we move to Wales, basically, because what has happened in the meantime, years ago, we both have income coming in now because we're both digital creators. The Lord. So we've always had missionary income come in, which is very small. But when the Lord told me, a year and a half ago, he was like, "Hey, I want you to start getting on TikTok." And I was like, that goofy app where everybody dances around. I was like, I don't even know how to do a TikTok. I was like, I don't even have Instagram. And the Lord's like, no, you're going to do a TikTok and you're going to get on there and you're just going to do what you do. And I was like, okay. So I started this TikTok account. Now I got like almost 250,000 followers. And I just get on there and talk about Jesus and crazy stuff and, faith but that has created, for the charity and for all those other types of aspects, like I do donation courses and, just for a couple of bucks, people can take a class or whatever. But the Lord has been so faithful. I've written a couple of books. She has her breath work, stuff that we do digitally that supplies a little bit of an income, a survivable income. And then but moving in there, it's like we don't have access to these massive amounts of funds that we need for farming. And the Lord's like, you need to start looking up grants. And see, when I was in Wales, I didn't know anything about charity funding. I didn't know anything about that. I thought charities had to ask people for money. I didn't know that there were different grant programs that you fund. And in Puerto Rico right now, there's a lot of grant funding for different types of farming, because the local economies are noticing that they need local farmers because it has gotten exorbitantly expensive. It has become a country that has been forced to depend on imports and exporting all its goods. So to have farms that supply things to the community, there's grant funds for. So we'll be using grant funding when we get down there. When we first get down there, for the first 6 months, we're just getting our feet on the ground. We're getting the lay of the land, just like we did in Wales, getting the lay of the land, making connections, meeting people, networking, et cetera. And then after that,
lots of praying. If you'd like to be part of our
yes, please
prayer team,
sign up. It's on the web link. Sign up for the prayer team, please. Just say, hey, I want to partner with you. Send the email. I'll be praying for you.
Ascended prayer. Okay.
Yes, ascended prayer.
The heavenlies.
Yes. Let's get up in the courtrooms of heaven and pray that way. But what we'll be doing is, for the first 6 months, getting our feet under us. We're gonna rent a home for the first 6 months to a year, depending on whatever it takes. And then during that second 6 month period, by that point in time, the charity should be rolling. We should have grant funds of some type coming in to buy an operational farm. So at that point in time, that's when we already have a property we feel like the Lord is leading us to. Lots of miracles have to happen for that to happen. But I believe in miracles. I've seen it before. I've seen it again. I've seen crazy things all over the world. And I know from our own personal story, the Lord's going to do it, and I know he's going to do it. I have no doubt. And so we're going to be acquiring the land and beginning. Lord's already told her, get ready. You're going to be clearing lots of land. But in that, so we're going to be, the kids are excited. We've got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old now, probably 7, a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and this is a long term. This is a long-term thing. As you can see in the, when you go to the site, wakethedream.com/Puerto-Rico, you can actually see that there's a 10-year plan there, because the Lord is like, this is long-term. This is, you're going to be there for a very, very long time. And, there's lots of different plans, for disaster relief. There's lots of different plans for, foster care of children, of care for young mothers, lots of community aspects. This is not going to be, we're just going to go down there and sit still. This is going to be, we're going to go down there and become a part of that land, and really just call out what's there. So.
Wow. Yeah. Amen. So yeah, please just sign up for either the email update, or let us know if you want to be part of a prayer team or get involved in any other way. We're definitely, some people have been asking if we're going to be like open for help. And yeah, that's a huge part of the vision and that's been since the original dream that the Lord gave Ken. There was a huge house that was just to host people and teams.
Yep.
And even families. And I believe this has become this type of a vision to just steward the earth and to partner with kingdom, what God is rolling out, the kingdom economy, the kingdom blueprint of well-being and joy, and just the glorious gospel, the true gospel of Jesus. This is a vision that I feel like a lot of people around the world are having, to just have land to partner with and to, do things in a way differently than maybe it's been done in the past, and not for greed or for any, financial gain or anything like that. And so anyway, our heart is to just take care of this spot well and teach people how to do it, and partner with people around the world in the future, to do it however it looks for, their unique space and their unique vision, like whatever God is doing, we just want to see him do it. So we'll probably have, once we get the land and get the space, the plan is to have like either little A-frame houses or just some type of small housing available for people who want to come and really immerse, like singles or couples or whatever, and then also to have space for groups and teams to come more short term, I guess. But yeah, we're holding it like that. So and then if you want to pray with us, then you will get the inside scoop, and we are really open to just what you hear the Lord saying as well. Because it's amazing to be connected with so many people who are so close to Papa God and who want to pray and want to steward this with us in the spirit. So we're really grateful for just every one of you who is already doing that with us in our life. And we'd love to just have like a regular meeting where we're just praying and worshiping together and just sharing time with you. So yeah,
that's one of the big things that the Lord has been telling me, is that this isn't going to be all you, that you're not going to be able to do, like, and when I say you, I mean our family, that we're not going to be able to do what it is that he's tasking us to do without the support of many people. It's like if you I mean, realistically, you go back through the scriptures and you hear stories of Abraham and Moses and all of these, and Daniel and all these guys that did these mighty things. They didn't do them by themselves. They always were surrounded by others who were all aligned with the same vision. And sometimes there were skirmishes between the two, but even Jesus, when he came, he didn't do it himself. He could have. He's God, but he chose to do it through others as well. And so, and you could say, oh, I can't believe it. You and Jesus in the same breath. Hey man, Jesus lives inside me. I don't know about you, but he lives inside you too. So you need to start thinking with that Christ mindset, because we have the mind of Christ, and that, we have the capability we have the ultimate power of the universe living inside of us. All of us collectively have that. And so there should be nothing that we cannot do together. And so when we're looking at what we're about to do in Puerto Rico, we're just forerunning. We're just pioneers. We're the ones that say yes to go break the ground, to get this thing rolling, to get it moving. But it does not get done without you. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't get done without you. It doesn't get done without partnerships of people coming along and joining side by side, either physically, prayerfully, mentally, emotionally, financially, all of these types of things. It does not get done The Lord has said, you're the ones that are going to break the ground, but you're bringing a whole lot of people with you. And so that's kind of the responsibility and the weight and the mandate that we have said yes to, and we understand that. And so we're thankful for you. We're thankful that you're on this call with us right now. We're thankful for the folks that are going to watch it later. We're thankful for all of that, because there's one resource you have that you can never get back, and that's time. And you're choosing to spend that time with us right now. And you're spending to invest that time with us in the future when we're in Puerto Rico doing what it is that we're doing, because it's not just us, it's all of us. And this is not just a Puerto Rican thing. This is a worldwide thing. And, we're honored to go and break the ground, but it's kind of like, we're not going there just to build a nice little homestead and we're going to have farm. We're going to give stuff to people. It's not that at all. Like we are very interested in a kingdom-based community of creating a place where people can come short-term, long-term, a weekend, 2 weekends, 2 months, whatever the case may be, and staying there and staying there and helping and getting to know the community around them and being a resource for that community, not a group that's coming in to exploit, but a group that's coming in to resource 100% that community and call them into the identity that they have in Christ. Yeah.
Ken, can I chip in?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot. Years and years ago, I had a vision about establishing houses of prayer, of worship in Wales, but I saw these houses of prayer across the globe, and the way it worked was you'd have a central house of prayer, and then it was like a wheel, and you'd have these other smaller houses that were connected to the central house of prayer. And as you're describing, I just see that for Puerto Rico. And each of the main houses, so there were a lot of these main houses, would have a different focus. So one would be houses of prayer and worship. One would be like teaching the kids, and another would be like what you're talking about, being like a farm and providing provision and maybe this will extend to across the island and you'll have more than one houses of prayer. But it's like reclaiming the land. And I just felt, as you were sharing, the most important is just prayer and worship. It's the foundation of everything you do. The prayer and worship, it just sets the foundation. And then I just want to encourage you about the, going on TikTok and stuff like that. My son, Ben, today, I had to take him to the orthodontist today. And he said to me, do you know when you breathe out, you're saying the name of God? And I was like, well, that's interesting. Where did you get that from? He said, I got it from TikTok, some guy on TikTok. And I was like, I reckon that's probably Ken.
No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, hey,
But I mean, either way, it was just like, this is an 18-year-old that doesn't go to church. He's not really kind of engaging with anything. And he's watching TikTok in his bedroom. And I'm like, wow, you can reach the whole world here. So, just encourage you with that, basically. It's sort of, God is doing something, basically, and I really believe, And the other thing I wanted to share was that basically I just found out the other day about there's all these agro groups in the Gower, and that basically you can buy a share of the crops. So instead of basically getting a food box, you basically it's like sowing into a cooperative. So you buy the seed and you guys plant it. And then you get a share. The person that buys the seed gets a share of the provision, and that's what a simple way of feeding the local population, and get them to be engaged with what you're doing, so that they're actually a part of what you're doing. So they don't see you as some westernizer coming in and taking over their land and just kind of like having a kind of flying people in and you're not part of the local community. I know that's not your heart. Your heart is to engage with the local community, but it's if you can somehow engage with them so that they actually sew into it and be a part of it without actually just seeing it as charity or kind of like,
Yep.
Because if you're trying to create something that is affordable for the masses, and basically if they say, okay, I'm willing to buy the seed, a share of the seed and I'll get a share of the crop, And I just thought, well, that's a beautiful idea and demonstrates the kingdom, basically,
Absolutely. And that's a big deal. Because in Puerto Rico right now, because of the poverty that a lot of people are being subjected to, what is happening is so the Puerto Rican government, in coordination with the federal government of the United States, created something called Act 60, which is designed to bring in foreigners. This is not just Americans. They call them gringos, but people think gringo means white person. It's just any foreigner that comes in. And basically, if they make over a certain amount of money, they can be there tax-free. So it's become kind of like a tax haven. So you had like a lot of people with Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, folks like that moving down, a lot of celebrities, et cetera, moving their homes down and operations down and businesses down and things like that. But what has happened is actually had an inverse effect on the local economy, because when you move wealthy people to an area, what happens is wealthy people, they want things that they are accustomed to. So you have wealthy stores, but what happens is that increases the price and it gentrifies certain areas. So what's happening is a lot of people that have lived in certain areas for a long time are being forced out of where they live. And basically like the prices are artificially inflated. So people can't afford to move out of where it is that they're moving to or moving from. So they're having to move to much lower standards of housing, et cetera, because the federal minimum wage in Puerto Rico is atrocious. So you have this issue. So you have this anger at people that are moving in. So it's imperative that when we move there we know that we're going to encounter a bit of resistance. But in the same token, because of our involvement of, it's imperative for us to involve people in the local community. It's imperative for us to not, like I said, not do things on our own, but to actually call in like the locals and create relationship with them. That is the most important thing. You can move somewhere and do all this stuff, but if you aren't creating a relationship, squat, And so that is imperative to us is to, like I said, put our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community, not bringing an American way of this is, and I feel like this is the reason that the Lord has called us there. I'm be real, is that He know our MO, how we handle things, is that we feel the reason we're being called there is because most people, when they come there, they want to put in a system from elsewhere instead of finding out what's there and bringing that into fruition. So that's
I think that's why you moved to Wales.
That is actually why we moved to Wales.
So that you had an understanding of what it likes moving to a culture that is the same but different.
Yep. Exactly.
And Americans have a reputation of sort of coming into a place and taking over, and
bull in a china shop.
And you guys didn't do that, and that's the credit to you, because you learned to sort of assimilate and adopt the home culture, and that's really important. And I think that was a lesson that you kind of learned to basically take with you where you're going now, basically.
The biggest compliment
Thank you.
The biggest compliment I ever got in Wales was, and I know the Americans are going to draw offense to this, but you've got to hear the heart behind what this person meant when they said it. They said, when we moved there and they got to know us and they started working with us on stuff, one day they pulled me aside and said, "You are the least American I've ever met." And I was like, "Why do you say that?" They were like, "You actually want you to find out what is here instead of just coming and like dropping a system in place." And that was a massive compliment. And I remember came home and told her, I was like, somebody said I was at least American. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Proud of being American, where at least I know I'm free. If I won't forget the man who died, gave that right to me, gladly stand up. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, we do have a reputation worldwide of coming in and being that bulldozer, of being that bull in a china shop that just like ransacks everything, and we leave a mess and then we leave. You know, it's like
some of it is justified. So because basically I worked with a ministry in Llandudno where I used to live, and this couple, you know, they were church planters, and they had their church planting model, and they came in with that church planting model, and they couldn't see a way around other than doing what they've done in every other place.
Yep.
And it didn't work. It actually collapsed because it just like, yeah.
As soon as they leave, it collapses. That's the thing. As soon as they leave, it collapses. The best advice, and I don't know if this person's on right now, the best advice I've ever received in my life, and this was a seed that was planted down deep when Jenn and I first came to the Lord, and we had big ideas. I remember when we first came to the Lord, like we had big ideas. We found this movie theater, and we wanted to turn it into a church. Like that was a movie theater. Like we were babies, and like we were just like,
It was kind of like your wheel vision, though.
Yeah,
It was always centered around prayer house and ministry, with everything just centered around the presence, really.
And we wanted to build, you know, we had these grand dreams. We're talking to our pastor mentor friend about it, and he's like all for it, because he's just the type of person. This is what we learned, who we learned this from, this resourcing thing from.
Say yes.
And just say, but he gave me the best advice I think I've ever gotten, because he was a missionary for for years. Like he was in,
I mean, he still is.
he still is in his heart, but like for years,
Yes.
yeah. But like that was his thing. And he said, anything that you build out of your power, you will have to sustain out of your power. Anything that is built with the Lord will sustain after you're gone. And that like seeded down, way down deep in there. And so, yeah, I mean, so even in like Puerto Rico, we know we're going to be here for a very long time. We know. Like the Lord's been clear, he's going to be there. Like we've seen visions of our kids growing up there. But I also know that everything that we build there, when and if the Lord says it's time to walk away, we'll walk away.
Right.
That's the thing. Because he's got something else, and he's got somewhere else that we need to go. So even though we look at this as permanent, and what I mean by permanent, like long term, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, so we just keep that. It's not ours. The money's not ours. The money that comes in is not ours. The money that folks give to us to give away there is not ours. None of it's ours. It all belongs to him, through him, for him, back to him. And that's it. Yeah.
Does anybody have questions? We don't want to take too much more of your time up, but if anybody has anything to ask, we'd love to just answer what we can.
I don't have questions, but I had some impressions. But while you guys were talking about, so someone brought up wheels, and I feel like don't reinvent the wheel. And I feel because as infantry, I'm really hearing you're having a cooperation with the Puerto Rican National Guard. And I feel like you could either use SATCOM radio or technology, but I just looked up that Ponce has their headquarters for the Army National Guard recruiting. And I flew in Ecuador and in Honduras, and I feel like, there's a lot of corruption. That's why a lot of people never got the resources sent during the hurricane. So I feel like the Lord is calling you like Daniel, and I'm just going to say it because I'm not, I just don't hold back. And this is what I'm feeling. Obviously, you have to pray about it, but I feel like there's going to be a partnership with either the state adjutant general, and this recruiting place is headquartered at the Health Services Academy. So I think there's a three-prong, some of these states have an OCS program. I think there's going to be a connection with the university, like you said. I really feel David Daniel's going to be a great part of this because his construction, I feel like there's a lot of erosion on the hillsides, because I did a lot of road like there was floods, and so we would be flying helicopters, lifting planers and stuff like that, these huge pieces of equipment trying to rescue people after they've had these floodings. So they have this new technology where you put, it's almost like netting on hillsides and stuff like that. But I also felt like, I know I'm jumping all around, Jen's used to this, but there was a show I watched, and it's called The Three Sisters. The Indians grow corn, beans, and squash together. So I'm really feeling like I also see angels already going there. I feel them standing on the ocean. It's not the one that Washington saw, or people see, you know, with one foot on the ocean and one on the land, but I feel like it's very similar to that. And there is a call. I'm seeing 20 years. I don't know if that's what you guys were thinking about the same time frame, but there's going to be a great partnership. I think eventually there's a lot of Christian groups, Trisend, Brian Orm, Aaron Bakaldani, and them running their Trisend retreats, which are Christocentric health retreats. But, you know, without the beach, that might not be so enticing as far as that goes. But you know, I feel like you're going to get in there, and because you're likable, you're infantry, you're going to be able to stand. You're not going to have to stand toe to toe to them, but you do understand that there is corruption, and we have this in other, I'm not going to name the state. When I was National Guard, there was always a lot more politics involved in Army Reserve or active duty Army. But I feel like if there's a partnership created from the beginning, God is going to open all the doors and all of that. But I took a couple other, okay, so the act repealing it. So what the crops, I think if you ask advice on the crops, because you said you actually have to export your own crops and import them back in off of your farm, correct? If I understood what you meant by the Jones Act, but maybe they have some kind of, unless you give them all away. Okay. So like that, what James was talking about, the agro, I think you're going to get somebody legal or somebody who's got a lot of savvy in all this, but I think that you might be your legacy might be part of this repealing the Jones Act or amending it. So it might be easier to amend it. See, this is where I think the partnership with the state adjutant general and some of these, so they also, you know, they might be doing like rescues, and they might have medics. I don't know. This is what the Holy Spirit was saying with me, but I just felt favor. You're not even going to imagine where it's coming from, and where you are considering there'll be resistance. I actually think there's going to be quite a flow. They're ready. They really want people to love them. They got, I'm just going to say it, shafted pretty bad. And I have a lot of friends that are in Puerto Rico and places. And I just think, you know, it's that middleman, somebody collecting the money, and the corruption, other working on that. But I think because you have music, Jen, we were talking about, art goes past barriers. I feel such grace. I feel such love. It's just incredible. I'm so happy for you guys.
Thank you so much, Sheila.
Thank
I
you.
love you.
I've heard amazing things.
And
Can I chime in?
Yeah, come on.
Those two of my favorite people.
Hello, brother.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, we miss you so much. We're coming.
Yeah, we'll be coming at some point for sure. Can I just say that while Sheila was talking, I'm sorry, did I say your name right? And Sheila, you got into that prophetic flow, and the Spirit was all around you, and it's beautiful. And I always sort of recognize that in because that's kind of how I flow as well sometimes. But while you were talking, I just saw you got to make sure you leave enough room on the property for a helipad, because at a certain point, God is the earth is gonna be supernaturally charged to grow everything bigger and faster than what is normal.
Wow.
And that you're going to be producing so much, and that you're going to be providing for areas that are not as easily reached by road, maybe even roads that get washed out, etc. But I think that I just saw a helicopter lifting produce that you guys are growing and producing there. And it's going to be coming so much, and it's going to be flowing so rapidly that you're going to even need a helicopter to help get things out of there, to go to the next place. So I don't even know if there's I can there's a I see him now as a little pilot, and he's got a little mustache. He's got a little mustache. It's a pretty thick, strong, little awesome mustache, but he's kind of short. So keep your eyes out for a guy that's got a mustache,
Wow.
pretty thick, kind of a Magnum PI kind of style mustache. But he also is a helicopter pilot. So keep an eye out for that guy. I don't know when that's
Wow.
going to happen, but I feel it strongly. There's going to be some supernatural, abundant overflow of the produce that comes from the land. So,
Come on. That's such a confirmation, Stephen. Just like I remember when we first started talking about whales, you got this vision and you had this, you had so much to share that the Lord was speaking to you, and it came true, didn't it? And like, here you are now in Wales with your beautiful wife, and you guys are just making waves. But that's so cool because I'm going to share a little tidbit. Should I share? I'm
I'm
going to
always blowing it up, aren't I? I'm always blowing things out of the water before it's said.
listen to what the first action the Lord said to take when we get there.
Yeah.
He said to start taking pilot lessons. Start taking.
Ah!
So that's
There you go.
literally like week 1, I'm going to find a school.
But if she grows a mustache, we've got a problem.
Well, I mean, you might maybe your teacher. You'll have your helicopter license or something. A teacher will you have a little.
Well, this is something that I don't even know if she knows, but I was actually talking to somebody about it the other day. So the Jones Act, which stops exportation and all that sort of stuff, that only applies to sailing vessels.
Wow.
So you can fly in goods and services from other. I mean, you still have import taxation and stuff, but you don't have. You can actually fly in goods. Now they can't fly into the commercial airports and things like that, obviously, but like through the smaller runways and stuff. So like we could actually run produce and we could run seed and things like that. So I actually was having lunch with our. I don't like to name names because if they're not here, because I don't want to, so this person said this about you,
Yeah.
but pastor, mentor, friend. You know who I'm talking about. We had lunch, and I actually told him, I was like, man, I know this because I was laying out the plan for him, and I was like, man, I know this sounds crazy, bro. I was like, but I'm feeling between that 5 and 10 year period, there's going to be an airstrip of some type near that property, and Jen's going to be flying and landing planes, and somebody's going to give her a plane. And I was like, because I was like, Lord, where am I going to? Because my dumb, stupid mind always goes back to the flesh. And goes back to, well, how are we going to afford it? Out of that poverty mentality, and the Lord's like, that's where I'm learning that's one thing the Wells has taught me, but I'm still catching up to with remedial lessons of my dependence doesn't come from what I can do. My dependence comes from him. Like
I
he's
was just going to say, just chime in there basically, because I've just looked up minerals in Puerto Rico, and there's absolutely tons of them. And so the countries that have rare earth minerals that produce all these electric motors and all the military hardware are going to be very, very rich. So it could be that you buy a property that basically has a mine on it, or
I received that,
and you're able to actually
Wow.
make an absolute fortune that actually provides the resources for doing everything you want to do. You got to think really big. I'm just praying that you get the blueprint from heaven. That's my prayer for you guys, because it's just like, this is huge. This is way bigger than just like a little farm.
Yep.
This is big. It's like, and so how do you do it? One step at a time, and God releases the blueprint. You don't let it freak you out, and you just work through it one stage at a time. And I really believe it, God's got it covered. He's got the resources covered. He's got, and I do feel that there is something to do. There's definitely a technological aspect, tapping into Starlink and all that kind of thing. It's like, who knows? You may have, people wanting to establish technological companies on in that area, basically. Do you know what I mean? And wanting to sort of develop things, basically, you know. So the Lord can do amazing things. And the other thing I want to point out is that the world is in a time of, you know, strife, basically. I mean, it's like what's going on in the Middle East and everything like that. So there are going to be these, my wife and I, one of the reasons we moved to Wales from London was because we felt there needed to be safe places, safe havens, and that there's going to be a time when basically some of these big cities are just going to get kind of bombed and so you're going to need a safe place. And I talk about, it talks in the Bible about cities of refuge. And I believe one of the things you're creating is a city of refuge. It's not necessarily a city, but it's a place of refuge, basically. And it's a place where people can kind of come and they've lost everything or whatever, you know, who knows what happens, basically. And they just need to come and decamp. And God is going to give you resources to provide for, you know, maybe a tent city for a temporary period, you know what I mean? And so it's like he's going to give you resources to take care of that, because I believe it's like in an area that's protected. It's an area that people perhaps overlook and go past and not kind of, you know, think it's, you know, not worth dropping a whole lot of bombs over, basically. Do you know what I mean? And so it's those places that are going to basically enable the rest of the world to survive, basically.
Yes.
And I'm
Absolutely.
in Amos 9:13 that the plowman will overtake people. I just really feel that. But you know, I think the Guard is part of this helicopter thing. There might already be an Army Aviation Support facility right in Ponce that you can drive your produce and they could fly it out. Or, you know, we used to take hay to cows that were stranded and stuff like that. I think that's saying that is already there. It's just a synergy. Maybe Fiorella and her synergies will be involved, because the synergy on this, and it's going to be secular and or 5 years from now.
Amen. Yeah, we have no idea how far it's going to go. You want to come say hi? Come say hi. This is our youngest. Look, you know, recognize some people here. Who's that? Who's that? You see James and Anka and Steven?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. Are you excited to go to Puerto Rico? Yep. We're going to be learning Spanish, all the good things. But thank you guys so much for just being a part of this time with us. And yeah, we receive all of that. We'll be praying into everything that you guys have mentioned. It all sounds so good, and we just can't wait. Everybody's saying hi, Johnny. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned. Just plug into the email on Awake to Dream, and we'll be sending out updates as things come, and definitely be hosting more, you know, more internal kind of just time to pray together and worship and just share more of what's coming. But love you all so much. Hey, Mama, there's Grammy. Aw, love you all so very much. Thank you again.
Love you.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't know where you went.
Sorry.
Love you
Love
guys.
you guys.